The sky above New York City was no longer blue. It had turned a deep, ominous shade of gray, not because of clouds or pollution, but because of the massive alien ships that hovered like floating mountains in the atmosphere. The air buzzed with an unnatural energy, and the ground trembled faintly under the weight of their presence. People ran through the streets, screaming, some clutching their belongings, while others simply froze in place. Staring upward in disbelief, Jack Harper tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his old pickup truck as he navigated the chaos. His knuckles were white, and sweat dripped down his forehead despite the cool autumn air. Beside him sat his younger sister, Lily Harper. She was quiet, her wide eyes glued to the window as she watched the panic unfold outside. Jack glanced at her briefly, his heart heavy with worry. He didn't know what to say to calm her. There weren't any words for this. "Do you think they'll hurt us?" Lily finally asked, her voice small and trembling. Jack hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But we're getting out of here, okay? Well, figure it out." Lily nodded, though her expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. At 24, Jack felt far too young to be responsible for keeping someone safe during an alien invasion. But life hadn't given him much choice. Their parents had passed away years ago in a car accident, leaving Jack as Lily's legal guardian. Now, with the world falling apart around them, all he could do was focus on one thing: survival. The traffic ahead came to a standstill, forcing Jack to slam on the brakes. Horns blared and people abandoned their vehicles, running toward whatever safety they thought they could find. Jack cursed under his breath and shifted the truck into reverse, trying to maneuver around the gridlock. "We can't stay here," he muttered to himself. "We need to get moving." Lily reached into her backpack and pulled out a tablet. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen as she accessed satellite images of the city. She had always been good with technology, even building her own telescopes. And radios when she was younger. Jack often teased her about being a nerd, but right now, he was grateful for her skills. "There's a service road about 2 blocks east," Lily said, pointing to the map on the screen. "It might be less crowded." Jack nodded. Good thinking. He turned the wheel sharply and drove onto the sidewalk, ignoring the startled shouts from pedestrians. They bounced over curbs and narrowly avoided crashing into lampposts as they made their way toward the service road. As they drove, Jack couldn't help but glance up at the alien ships. They were enormous, each one bigger than the Empire State Building, and their surfaces shimmered with strange, iridescent colors. Occasionally, smaller craft would detach from the motherships and descend toward the ground, releasing beams of light that seemed to suck people off the streets. Jack shuddered at the thought of what might happen to those unlucky souls. "They've been planning this," Lily said suddenly, breaking the tense silence. "These ships, they didn't just appear out of nowhere. Someone must have known they were coming." Jack frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I've been tracking unusual activity in space for months," Lily explained. "Signals, anomalies, it all pointed to something big. But I never imagined." Her voice trailed off, and she shook her head. "Why didn't anyone listen?" Jack sighed. "Even if you told them, who would have believed you? Most people barely pay attention to anything outside their own little worlds." Lily looked down at her hands, guilt flickering across her face. "Maybe I should have tried harder." "Don't blame yourself," Jack said firmly. "This isn't your fault. None of us saw this coming." They reached the service road, which was indeed less congested than the main streets. Still there were plenty of obstacles to navigate: abandoned cars, debris, and groups of frightened citizens blocking the way. Jack honked the horn repeatedly, shouting for people to move aside, but many ignored him, too panicked to notice. At one point, a man darted in front of the truck, waving his arms wildly. Jack slammed on the brakes again, narrowly avoiding hitting him. The man pounded on the hood, shouting something unintelligible. Jack rolled down the window just enough to hear him. "They're rounding people up," the man yelled, "taking them to Central Park. You've got to hide." Jack exchanged a worried look with Lily. "Thanks," he said curtly, then accelerated past the man. Whatever was happening in Central Park, he needed to avoid it at all costs. As they continued driving, the situation grew worse. Fires raged in several parts of the city. sending thick plumes of smoke into the already darkened sky. Emergency sirens wailed incessantly, adding to the sense of impending doom. Jack clenched his jaw, determined to keep going despite the growing despair. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the city, where the buildings gave way to open fields and sparse trees. Jack pulled the truck onto a dirt path and parked beneath a cluster of tall oaks, hoping the foliage would provide some cover. He turned off the engine and leaned back in his seat, letting out a long breath. "We'll rest here for a bit," he said, glancing at Lily. "You doing okay?" She nodded, though her hands were still shaking. "Yeah, just processing everything." Jack reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "We're going to make it through this. I promise." For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the distant sounds of destruction. Then Lily spoke again, her tone more serious this time. "What if they're not just invading Earth? What if they're here to take everything to wipe us out completely?" Jack hesitated. He didn't want to scare her further, but he couldn't lie either. "I don't know why they're here," he admitted. "But whatever happens, we'll deal with it together." Unbeknownst to them, high above the planet, a heated debate was taking place aboard the flagship of the Galactic Council. Commander Zorak, a towering reptilian creature with scales that gleamed like polished obsidian, paced back and forth in the war room, his tail lashed angrily behind him as he addressed the other leaders. "The humans are proving more resilient than anticipated," he growled, his voice low and guttural. "We must increase our efforts to subdue them immediately." Kayla, a slender humanoid with pale skin and luminous green eyes, stood nearby, her arms crossed. She had opposed the decision to invade Earth, arguing that humanity deserved a chance to evolve peacefully. But her voice had been drowned out by the majority vote. And now she found herself stuck in the middle of a nightmare. "And what happens after we subdue them?" Kayla challenged, stepping forward. "Do we enslave them indefinitely? Well, you simply exterminate them once you've taken what you want." Zorak sneered at her. "Your sentimental attachment to these primitives is pathetic. They are a threat to the stability of the galaxy, and they must be dealt with accordingly." Kayla opened her mouth to argue further, but another council member interrupted. "Enough," the elder said, raising a hand. "We have made our decision. The invasion will proceed as planned." Frustrated and defeated, Kayla retreated to a corner of the room, watching silently as Zorak issued orders to his troops. Deep down, she knew she couldn't stand by and watch as billions of innocent lives were destroyed. She would have to find a way to intervene, but how? Back on Earth, Jack and Lily prepared to continue their journey. They couldn't stay hidden forever, and sooner or later, they'd have to face the reality of the invasion head-on. For now, though, they allowed themselves a brief moment of peace, sitting side by side beneath the stars that had suddenly become so much closer and infinitely more dangerous. The next morning, Jack and Lily left their makeshift hiding spot under the trees and resumed their journey. The quiet of the countryside was a stark contrast to the chaos they had escaped in the city. Birds chirped softly in the distance, and the air smelled fresh, almost peaceful. But the calm was deceptive. Every rustle in the bushes or distant hum made them jump. Fearing it might be an alien scout, they drove cautiously along narrow roads, avoiding towns and sticking to less traveled paths. By midday, they stumbled upon a small gas station that looked abandoned. Jack parked the truck behind the building, out of sight from the road, and stepped out carefully. He motioned for Lily to stay put while he checked the area. Inside the dusty convenience store, shelves were half empty, and the cash register had been smashed open. Someone had already looted the place, but there were still a few useful items. Left bottled water, granola bars, and a first aid kit. Jack grabbed everything he could carry and returned to the truck. "We need supplies," he told Lily, as he loaded the items into the back seat, "and we should keep moving."
"This isn't
safe." Lily nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon nervously. "Do you think anyone else is still alive out here?" "I'm sure there are," Jack replied. "People don't give up that easily. We'll find others soon enough." Just as he finished speaking, a faint sound caught his attention, a low rumble, growing louder by the second. It wasn't the hum of an alien ship this time. It was the roar of engines. Jack ducked behind the truck, pulling Lily down with him. Through the gaps between vehicles, they saw a convoy of battered cars and trucks speeding toward the gas station. "Stay quiet," Jack whispered, gripping the knife he always kept tucked into his belt. The convoy screeched to a halt, and a group of people spilled out. They were armed with rifles, bats, and makeshift weapons. One woman stepped forward, her posture confident despite the dirt smudged across her face. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight ponytail, and her sharp brown eyes scanned the area suspiciously. "Who's there?" she called out, raising her rifle slightly. "Show yourself." Jack hesitated for a moment before standing up slowly, keeping his hands visible. "We're not here to cause trouble," he said, his voice steady. "Just passing through." The woman lowered her weapon slightly, but didn't relax. "Name's Sarah Bennett," she said. "You alone?" "This is my sister Lily," Jack replied, nodding toward the truck where Lily now stood cautiously. "We came from New York." Sarah studied them for a moment, then signaled to her group to stand down. "Get in your truck and follow us," she said. "You'll be safer with us than out here on your own." Jack exchanged a glance with Lily, who gave a slight nod. Reluctantly, he climbed back into the driver's seat and followed the convoy to a secluded farmhouse a few miles away. The property was surrounded by tall fences, reinforced with metal sheets and barbed wire. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, and makeshift barricades blocked the driveway. As they entered the compound, Jack noticed how organized everything seemed. Tents were set up in neat rows, and people moved about with purpose. Children played quietly near the barn, watched over by older teenagers. Despite the dire circumstances, there was a sense of order here, fragile. Hope clinging to survival, Sarah led them to a large tent that served as the group's command center. Inside, maps and diagrams covered the walls, and a radio crackled. Faintly in the corner, she gestured for Jack and Lily to sit at a folding table while she poured them cups of weak coffee. "You've seen what those things can do," Sarah said, sitting across from them. "They're tearing the planet apart, stripping mines, cutting down forests, draining lake sits like they're trying to suck Earth dry." Jack frowned. "Why? What do they want with our resources?" "It's not just resources," Lily interjected suddenly. "It's biology. Our ecosystems are unique. The way plants adapt, animals evolve. Even human DNA has properties they can't replicate." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "How do you know all this?" "I've been studying astrobiology," Lily explained. Before everything happened, I've seen patterns in their behavior. They're not just after minerals or water, they're harvesting life itself." Sarah leaned back in her chair, considering Lily's words. "If that's true, then we might have something they need," she said thoughtfully. "Something they can't get anywhere else." "That's assuming we can use it against them," Jack pointed out. "Right now, we're outnumbered and outgunned," Sarah nodded grimly, "which is why we're fighting smarter, not harder. We've been collecting intel, sabotaging supply lines, hitting them where it hurts. But we need better weapons, better strategies." Lily's expression lit up with an idea. "What if we could disrupt their tech, their ships, their weapons? They rely on some kind of advanced systems to function. Oh, if we could interfere." "With those, it's possible," Sarah said slowly. "But how?" "I'd need access to one of their drones or devices," Lily replied. "It's something I can study. Once I understand how their technology works, I might be able to create a countermeasure." Jack looked at his sister skeptically. "Are you sure about this? It sounds dangerous." "I'm sure," Lily said firmly. "We don't have any other options." Sarah stood up, pacing the room as she thought. "There's a crash site about 20 miles north of here. One of their smaller ships went down during a storm last week. If we can get there, maybe we can salvage something useful." Jack shook his head. "That's too risky. They'll have patrols guarding it." "Not necessarily," Sarah countered. "They've been focused on urban areas. Most of their forces are concentrated in cities. If we move fast and stay off the main roads, we might be able to slip in and out without being detected." Jack glanced at Lily, who was already nodding eagerly. He sighed, knowing there was no point in arguing. "All right," he said reluctantly. But we do this my way. No unnecessary risks. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the trio prepared for their mission. Sarah gathered a small team of trusted fighters, each carrying weapons scavenged from fallen aliens. Jack packed extra ammunition and tools, while Lily brought her tablet and a portable scanner she had salvaged from the gas station before they left. Sarah pulled Jack aside. "Listen," she said quietly. "I know you're worried about your sister. So am I, but if she's right about this, she could be the key to turning the tide. Trust her hand, trust me." Jack nodded, though his jaw remained tense. "Just bring her back in one piece," he said. "That's all I ask." Sarah smiled faintly. "I'll do my best." The journey to the crash site was tense and exhausting. They traveled under cover of darkness, avoiding roads and sticking to wooded areas. At one point, they encountered a patrol of humanoid aliens with glowing blue eyes and elongated limbs. The creatures moved silently, their heads swiveling as they scanned the terrain. The group froze, crouching low in the bushes until the patrol passed. When they finally reached the crash site, the wreckage was eerily silent. The alien ship lay crumpled in a clearing, its metallic surface scorched and cracked. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its hull, pulsing with an otherworldly light. The air around it shimmered, as if distorted by heat. "This is it," Lily whispered, stepping forward cautiously. She activated her scanner and began analyzing the ship's structure. "The energy readings are incredible. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Jack kept watch, his rifle trained on the surrounding trees. "Hurry up," he urged. "We don't have much time." Lily worked quickly, downloading data and examining fragments of the ship's internal components. She pried open a panel. A burst of static erupted from her tablet, startling everyone. "What was that?" Sarah asked sharply. "It's some kind of interference," Lily replied, frowning at the screen. "Their tech must emit a signal that disrupts electronics. If we can replicate it..." Suddenly, a loud worry noise filled the air. Bright lights flashed overhead as a squad of alien drones descended from the sky, surrounding the group. The creatures inside the drones emerged, their weapons aimed directly at them. "Drop your weapons." One of the aliens barked in broken English. Jack tightened his grip on his rifle, his mind racing. They were outnumbered and outmatched. "There was no way out. Don't shoot," Sarah said calmly, lowering her weapon. "We surrender." Reluctantly, Jack followed suit, dropping his rifle to the ground. Lily clutched her tablet protectively, refusing to let go. The aliens approached, their movements fluid and precise. One of them seized Lily roughly by the arm, snatching the tablet from her hands. "No," Jack shouted, lunging forward instinctively. An alien struck him with the butt of its weapon, sending him sprawling to the ground. Jack. Struggling against her captor, Sarah stepped in front of them, her hands raised. "Take me instead," she said firmly. "Let them go." The lead alien tilted its head, studying her curiously. After a moment, it nodded, signaling for its troops to retreat. Jack and Lily were shoved back toward the trees, while Sarah was dragged aboard one of the drones. The craft lifted off the ground, disappearing into the night sky. Jack sank to his knees, his chest heaving with anger and frustration. "We have to go after her," he said through gritted teeth. Lily knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We will," she promised. "But first, we need to finish what we started. For her and for everyone else." The walk back to the compound felt endless. Each step weighed heavily on Jack and Lily, not just from exhaustion, but from the burden of what had happened. Sarah's capture haunted them both. She had sacrificed herself to give them a chance, and now it was up to them to make her sacrifice count. Lily clutched the small pieces of alien tech they had managed to salvage, a few shards of circuitry, a damaged panel, and fragments of data stored on her tablet. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start. Her mind raced with possibilities, equations, and theories about how the alien systems worked. If she could crack their code, maybe they could turn the tables. Jack, on the other hand, was quieter than usual. His jaw was clenched, his fist balled at his sides as he walked. He couldn't stop thinking about Sarah. The memory of her being dragged away replayed in his mind over and over again. He hated feeling powerless, especially when someone he cared about was in danger. But for now, all he could do was focus on getting back to the compound and figuring out their next move. When they finally arrived, the group greeted them with a mix of relief and concern. The others had been worried sick after hearing nothing for hours. One of the guards, a wiry man named Ben, approached them cautiously. "Where's Sarah?" he asked, his voice tight with worry. Jack hesitated before answering. "She got caught. We couldn't save her." Ben's face fell, and for a moment no one spoke. Then he nodded slowly, swallowing hard. "We'll get her back," he said firmly. "But first, tell us what you found." Lily stepped forward, holding up the damaged alien panel. "We salvaged some tech from the crash site. It's not perfect, but I think I can use it to figure out how their systems work. If I'm right, we might be able to create something that interferes with their weapons or communication." The room buzzed with cautious excitement. People exchanged hopeful glances, though skepticism lingered in the air. They had heard promises before, only to see them crumble under the weight of reality. Still, they trusted Lily. She had always been the smart one, the one who saw solutions where others saw dead ends. "We'll need supplies," Lily continued. "Tools, wires, anything electrical, somewhere quiet where I can work without distractions." Sarah's second in command, a tall woman named Rachel, stepped forward. "You'll have whatever you need," she said. "Take over the workshop tent. Nobody bothers you until you're done." Lily nodded gratefully, already mentally planning her next steps. Jack watched her go, torn between pride and worry. Wanted to help, but he knew this was her area of expertise. Instead, he turned to Rachel. "What's the plan for Sarah?" he asked bluntly. "We can't just leave her out there," Rachel sighed, running a hand through her short blonde hair. "I know how you feel, Jack, but rushing in blind won't help anyone. We need more information first." "Where did they take her? How many are guarding her?" Without answers, any rescue attempt would be suicide. "I don't care," Jack snapped, his frustration boiling over. "She risked everything for us. We owe her. We will get her back," Rachel said, firmly, but not tonight. "Right now, our best shot is letting Lily work her magic. Once we have a weapon or, even a distraction, we'll have a real chance." Jack clenched his fists but didn't argue further. Deep down, he knew Rachel was right. As much as it killed him to wait, they needed a plan. For now, all he could do was pace outside the workshop tent, cuting an ear out for updates while Lily worked tirelessly inside. Inside the workshop, Lily spread out the alien components on a makeshift table. Her hands moved quickly, connecting wires and testing circuits. The tablet flickered occasionally due to residual interference from the alien tech, but she powered through, determined to unlock its secrets. Hours passed, then days grew tense as everyone waited for news. Supplies were running low and patrols reported increased alien activity nearby. Morale was slipping, but Lily refused to give up. She barely slept, fueled by adrenaline and sheer willpower. Finally, late on the third night, she made a breakthrough. A faint hum filled the air as the device she had been building came to life. It was small, no bigger than a shoebox with blinking lights and exposed wiring. But it worked. "I did it," Lily whispered to herself, her voice trembling with disbelief. She grabbed the prototype and rushed outside, nearly colliding with Jack, who had been pacing nearby. "What is it?" he asked, noticing the excitement in her eyes. "It's a disruptor," she explained breathlessly. "It interferes with their neural implants, the things they use to control their machines and communicate. If we deploy this near their command centers, it could shut down entire fleets." Jack stared at the device in awe. "That's incredible. How do we get it close enough to work?" "That's your job," Lily said, handing him the disruptor carefully. "You guys need to figure out where to strike. I've done my part." Jack nodded, a spark of hope reigniting within him. For the first time since Sarah's capture, he felt like they actually had a fighting chance. Meanwhile, Aboard the alien flagship, Kayla stood in the shadows of the bridge, watching Commander Zorak bark orders at his subordinates. The invasion was progressing faster than expected, but tensions were rising among the council members. Some species questioned the morality of enslaving Earth, while others pushed for even harsher measures. Kayla's thoughts drifted to Sarah, the human woman who had been captured during the raid on the crash site. She had seen the footage of the incident, Sarah's bravery, her willingness to sacrifice herself for her companions. It reminded Kayla of why she had opposed the invasion in the first place. As she mulled over her options, a junior officer approached her nervously. "Commander Zorak requests your presence in the interrogation chamber," he said. Kayla's stomach sank. Interrogations rarely ended well for prisoners. She followed the officer silently, her mind racing. When they reached the chamber, she found Sarah strapped to a chair, bruised but defiant. Zorak loomed over her, his reptilian features twisted into a sneer. "This one refuses to cooperate," Zorak growled, turning to Kayla. "Perhaps you can persuade her." Kayla hesitated, then stepped forward. "Leave us," she said quietly. Zorak raised an eyebrow but complied, motioning for the guards to exit the room. Once they were alone, Kayla knelt beside Sarah, speaking softly in English. "I mean you no harm," she said. "But you must tell me what you know." Sarah glared at, her blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. "Why should I trust you?" "'Cause I want to stop this," Kayla replied earnestly. "Your people, they fight harder than anyone predicted. They adapt, survive, resist. You're proving that conquest is not the only path forward." For a long moment, Sarah said nothing. Then, reluctantly, she began sharing details about the resistance, careful not to reveal too much. Kayla listened intently, piecing together a picture of humanity's resilience. When the interrogation ended, Kayla returned to her quarters, her resolve stronger than ever. She knew what she had to do next, but it would come at a great personal cost. Back on Earth, Jack and the team prepared for their mission. Using intel gathered from scouts, they identified a key alien command center located in what used to be Washington, D.C. It was heavily guarded, but if they could plant the disruptor inside, it would cripple the invaders' operations across the region. The night before the assault, Jack visited Lily in the workshop. She was tinkering with the device, making last-minute adjustments. "You ready for this?" she asked, looking up at him. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jack replied. "Just promise me you'll stay safe." Lily smiled weakly. "I promise. Now go get Sarah back." The following morning, the team set out under cover of darkness. The journey was perilous, with patrols and drones constantly scanning the area. But they moved swiftly and silently, sticking to the shadows. When they reached the outskirts of the command center, Jack gave the signal to split into two groups. One would create a diversion, drawing attention away from the main entrance. The other, led by Jack, would infiltrate the facility and plant the disruptor. As the diversion team launched their attack, explosions lit up the sky, alarms blared, and aliens scrambled to respond. Jack and his group seized the opportunity, slipping through a side entrance undetected. Inside, the corridors were eerily quiet, illuminated by pulsating blue lights. Jack's heart pounded as they navigated the maze-like structure, guided by Lily's map. Finally, they reached the central hub, a massive chamber filled with glowing consoles and alien technicians. "Here," Jack whispered, placing the disruptor in the middle of the room. "Set it, and let's get out." But before they could retreat, a squad of aliens burst in, weapons drawn. Jack raised his hands slowly, trying to buy time. Just as the lead alien opened fire, the disruptor activated, emitting a high-pitched whine that echoed through the chamber. The aliens staggered, clutching their heads as their implants malfunctioned. Lights flickered and screens went dark. "Now," Jack shouted, leading the charge. They fought their way out, dodging collapsing debris and disoriented enemies. Outside, the diversion team provided cover fire, allowing them to escape. As they regrouped at a safe distance, the command center erupted in flames behind them. Cheers broke out among the team, but Jack's mind was already elsewhere. They had struck A blow against the invaders, but Sarah was still out there, waiting for rescue. The explosion at the alien command center sent shockwaves through the resistance. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense of victory, a fragile, fleeting hope that maybe they could win this fight. Jack and his team returned to the compound, battered but triumphant, carrying stories of their daring raid. The disruptor had worked exactly as Lily had promised, disabling the alien systems and throwing their operations into chaos, but despite the success, Jack couldn't shake an image of Sarah's face from his mind. She was still out there, somewhere aboard an alien ship, or locked away in one of their facilities. Every moment she spent in captivity weighed heavily on him. He knew they couldn't rest, not yet. Lily, too, felt the weight of responsibility. While everyone celebrated their small victory, she retreated to the workshop tent, determined to improve the disruptor. The prototype had been effective, but it was limited in range and power. If they wanted to take down more alien strongholds, they needed something stronger, something capable of targeting multiple locations at once. Jack found her hunched over her workbench late that night, surrounded by wires, tools, and glowing fragments of alien tech. Her face was pale, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "You should rest," he said gently, leaning against the doorway. "I can't," Lily replied without looking up. "Not until we have something better." "This isn't enough." Jack sighed and walked over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've already done so much. Give yourself some time." Lily shook her head, her voice sharp with frustration. "We don't have time, Jack. Every second we waste is another second Sarah spends trapped with them. What if they hurt her, or worse?" Her words hung in the air between them, heavy and unspoken. Jack didn't know how to reassure her because deep down, he feared the same thing. But he also knew that pushing herself too hard would only make things worse. "Okay," he said finally. "Just promise me you'll eat something and get a few hours of sleep. You're no good to anyone if you collapse." After a long pause, Lily nodded reluctantly. "Fine, a couple of hours, then I'm back to work." As Jack left the tent, he crossed paths with Rachel, who was standing outside under the dim light of a lantern. Her arms were crossed and her expression was grim. "How's she holding up?" Rachel asked quietly. "As well as can be expected," Jack replied. "She's tough, but even she has limits." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "We all do, but we can't afford to fall apart now, not when we're finally gaining ground." Jack glanced toward the horizon, where faint flashes of light signaled ongoing skirmishes between the resistance and the invaders. "What's next for us? Another raid?" "We need intel," Rachel said. "If we're going to find Sarand, hit them where it hurts. We need to know where their main forces are concentrated. That means sending scouts deeper into enemy territory." Jack frowned. "That's risky. They'll be walking straight into danger." "It's always risky," Rachel countered. "But we don't have a choice, sitting here waiting for them. To come after us isn't an option." Meanwhile, aboard the alien flagship, Kayla moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors. Her sabotage of the coordination system had caused widespread confusion among the invaders, but it hadn't gone unnoticed. Zorak had called an emergency meeting of the council, demanding answers about the sudden failures in communication and logistics. Kayla knew it was only a matter of time before suspicion fell on her. She had acted alone, but her actions betrayed her loyalties. As she approached the war room, she braced herself for the inevitable confrontation. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Zorak paced furiously, his tail lashing behind him like a whip. Other council members sat silently, avoiding eye contact. When Kayla entered, all eyes turned to her. "You were responsible for maintaining the coordination system?" Zorak growled. "Stopping in front of her? Explain its failure." Kayla met his gaze steadily, though her heart raced. "I did my duty," she said calmly. "But perhaps the humans are more resourceful than we anticipated. Their technology may have evolved beyond our understanding," Zorak snarled, clearly unconvinced. "Your excuses mean nothing. If you are hiding information, speak now or face the consequences." Kayla hesitated, weighing her options. She could deny everything and hope the truth remained buried, or she could reveal what she knew and risk execution. In the end, She chose a middle path. There is evidence suggesting the humans possess knowledge of our neural implants, she admitted carefully. They may have developed countermeasures. If we continue this campaign blindly, we risk further losses. The room erupted into murmurs as the council members exchanged worried glances. Zorak's expression darkened, but he didn't immediately refute her claim. Instead, he turned to the others. "What do you suggest?" he demanded. One of the elder council members spoke up, his voice measured. "Perhaps it is time to reconsider our approach. Enslavement was meant to secure resources, not provoke rebellion. If these humans are as resilient as Kayla suggests, we may need to negotiate terms rather than force submission." Zorak slammed his fist onto the table, his scales rippling with anger. "Negotiation is weakness. These primitives must be crushed, but at what cost?" Another council member interjected. "Our fleets are stretched thin, and dissent grows among our own ranks. We cannot sustain this war indefinitely." The debate raged on, with Kayla remaining silent. She had planted the seed of doubt, and now it was up to the council to decide their next move. For the first time, cracks were beginning to form in the invaders' unity. Back on Earth, the Resistance launched a new wave of reconnaissance missions. Small teams ventured into occupied zones, gathering intelligence on alien troop movements and supply lines. One such team, led by Ben, discovered a hidden detention facility nestled deep within a forested area. It was heavily guarded, but signs indicated it housed human prisoners, including Sarah. When Ben returned to the compound with the news, Jack was the first to volunteer for the rescue mission. Rachel agreed to let him lead the operation, but she insisted on assembling a larger team to ensure success. "We'll go in fast and quiet," Rachel instructed during the briefing. "Extract the prisoners and get out before reinforcements arrive. No heroics." Jack nodded, though his mind was already racing with plans. He couldn't afford to lose focus, not when Sarah's life depended on him. The night of the mission, the team set out under cover of darkness. The journey to the detention facility was treacherous, with patrols and drones scanning the area constantly. They moved cautiously, using makeshift camouflage to blend into their surroundings. When they reached the perimeter fence, Jack signaled. For silence, Lily had modified several of the disruptors to create portable versions, which the team carried in backpacks. As they approached the gate, one of the operatives activated a disruptor, causing the guards' implants to malfunction temporarily. The team slipped inside undetected. Inside the facility was eerily quiet. Rows of cells lined the walls, many of them empty. Jack's heart sank as he realized most of the prisoners had likely been relocated or worse. But then he heard a faint voice calling out, "Over here," Zora whispered hoarsely from behind a barred door. Jack rushed to her cell, his hands trembling as he worked the lock. When the door swung open, Sarah stumbled into his arms, weak but alive. Her face was gaunt, her clothes torn, but her spirit remained unbroken. "Took you long enough?" she joked weakly, managing a faint smile. "Let's get you home," Jack said, helping her to her feet. As they regrouped with the rest of the team, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Reinforcements were closing in fast. Jack barked orders, leading the group toward the exit. Shots rang out as alien soldiers poured into the building, forcing the team to fight their way out. Just as they reached the outer perimeter, a massive explosion rocked the facility. One of the operatives had rigged the main power core to overload, creating a diversion that allowed them to escape into the woods. They ran as fast as they could, dodging falling debris and pursuing enemies. By the time they reached the rendezvous point, dawn was breaking over the horizon. Exhausted but victorious, the team loaded into waiting vehicles and sped away from the smoldering ruins of the detention center. Sarah leaned back in her seat, clutching a blanket tightly around her shoulders. "Thanks for coming back for me," she said softly, looking at Jack. He smiled faintly. "Always." Unbeknownst to them, Kayla watched the events unfold from afar. Using stolen footage from the battle, she pieced together the growing strength of humanity's resistance. The tide was turning, and she knew it was only a matter of time before the invaders faced their reckoning. For now, though she stayed hidden, biding her time until the moment was right to strike again. The days following the rescue mission were a blur of activity at the Resistance compound. Sarah's return brought a renewed sense of hope to the group, but it also highlighted the growing stakes of their fight. The aliens weren't backing down, they were adapting. Their attacks became more coordinated, their patrols more frequent, and their cruelty more pronounced. It was clear they were desperate to regain control after the setbacks caused by the Disidros. Spent most of her time recovering from her ordeal, though she refused to stay idle for long. Her body bore the scars of captivity, but her mind remained sharp. She joined strategy meetings, sharing insights about the aliens' operations and tactics she had observed while imprisoned. "They're scared," Sarah said during one such meeting. "They didn't expect us to hit back so hard. If we keep pushing, we can break them." Her words resonated with the group. But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a thin line between victory and disaster. Every success came at a cost: lives lost, resources depleted, morale tested. And yet, there was no turning back now. Lily continued working tirelessly in the workshop tent, refining the disruptor technology. With Sarah's help, she developed a new version capable of targeting multiple alien systems simultaneously. This upgraded device, which they dubbed the Pulse, could disable entire fleets if deployed strategically. But it required precise calibration and a direct power source a challenge. They couldn't afford to fail. "We'll need to get close to one of their main hubs," Lily explained, as she demonstrated the prototype to the team. "Somewhere with enough energy output to amplify the signal." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "There's a central relay station near Chicago. It's heavily guarded, but if we can plant the Pulse there, we could cripple their communications across half the continent." Jack clenched his jaw. "That's suicide. They'll have every gun pointed at us." "It's risky," Rachel admitted. "But it's our best shot. We've already proven we can strike where it hurts. Now we just need to do it bigger." After much debate, the decision was made. A small elite team would infiltrate the relay station, deploy the Pulse, and extract before reinforcements arrived. Jack volunteered immediately, despite Lily's protests. "You're not expendable," Lily argued, her voice trembling with frustration. "If something happens to you, I'll be fine," Jack interrupted gently. "I'm not doing this alone. Stick together like always." Reluctantly, Lily agreed to let him go. In the days leading up to the mission, she worked nonstop, ensuring the Pulse was ready. Jack trained with the team, running drills and reviewing plans until every detail was burned into his memory. Sarah stayed by his side, offering advice and support, though her presence only added to Jack's determination to succeed, for her sake as much as anyone else's, high above Earth. Aboard the alien flagship, tensions among the council members reached a boiling point. Kella's sabotage efforts had weakened their grip on the planet, and dissent spread like wildfire among the ranks. Some species called for retreat, arguing that humanity posed a greater risk to justify further losses. Others, led by Zorak, demanded total annihilation. "The humans are resourceful," Kayla said during a heated council session. "Their adaptability makes them unpredictable. Continuing this war will only lead to more casualties for both sides." Zorak slammed his fist onto the table, his voice dripping with venom. "Your cowardice disgusts me. These primitives are nothing but pests. Pests must be exterminated." Kayla met his glare with unwavering resolve. "Extermination is futile. Even if we destroy them, what have we gained? A barren wasteland? Is that worth the lives of our soldiers?" The argument escalated into shouting matches, each side vying for dominance. Finally, the elder council member intervened, silencing the room with a raised hand. "Enough," he commanded. "This division weakens us all. If we are to proceed, we must act decisively. Commander Zorak, prepare your forces for a final assault. Kayla, gather intelligence on human weaknesses. We will end this conflict once and for all." As the meeting adjourned, Kayla retreated to her quarters, her heart heavy with dread. She knew Zorak's plan would result in unimaginable destruction, not just for Earth, but for countless innocent lives caught in the crossfire. There was only one option left: betrayal. That night, Kayla accessed the flagship's restricted archives. Searching for information on Zorak's ultimate weapon, doomsday device, designed to obliterate entire planets. The files were encrypted, but she had learned enough about their systems during her time aboard to bypass the security protocols. What she discovered chilled her to the core. The weapon was nearly operational. Once activated, it would unleash a catastrophic energy wave capable of erasing Earth's atmosphere within minutes. Zorak intended to use it as a last resort if the invasion faltered further. Time was running out. Kayla downloaded the data onto a portable drive and disabled several critical systems aboard the ship, creating chaos among the crew. Alarms blared and panicked. Technicians scrambled to contain the breaches. Amid the confusion, Kayla slipped away, heading for the hangar bay. She commandeered a small scout ship, programming its coordinates for Earth. As she launched into space, Zorak's voice crackled over the comms, furious and accusing. "Traitor," he roared. "You will pay for this betrayal." Kayla ignored him, focusing on the task ahead. Humanity deserved a fighting chance, and she was determined to give it to them. Back on Earth, Jack and his team prepared for their assault on the relay station. Armed with the Pulse and equipped with stealth gear scavenged from fallen aliens, they set out under cover of darkness. The journey was perilous, with enemy drones patrolling the skies and ground forces sweeping the area. But they moved silently, sticking to shadows and avoiding detection. When they reached the outskirts of the relay station, they paused to observe the layout. The facility was massive, surrounded by high walls and bristling with defensive turrets. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their glowing blue eyes scanning for intruders. "This is going to be tight," Jack whispered, studying the map on his wrist console. "We'll split into two groups. One creates a diversion. The other plants the pulse." Sarah nodded, her rifle slung across her shoulder. "Let's make it count." The diversion team, led by Ben, launched their attack first, using modified disruptors. They triggered a series of explosions that drew the guards' attention. Chaos erupted as alarms blared and reinforcements poured into the fray. Meanwhile, Jack, Lily, and two others slipped through a service entrance, making their way toward the central hub. Inside, the air hummed with energy. Massive conduits pulsed with light, feeding power to the relay antennas towering above the facility. Jack carried the pulse, its blinking lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Here," Lily said, pointing to a junction box connected to the main grid. "Hook it up here. The energy flow will boost the signal." Jack knelt beside the box, attaching wires and configuring settings. His hands moved quickly, sweat dripping down his face as he worked. Behind him, Lily kept watch, her finger poised. On the trigger of her pistol, suddenly a squad of alien soldiers burst into the room, weapons drawn. Before they could fire, Sarah appeared in the doorway, taking them down with precise shots. She gave Jack a quick nod before turning to cover. "Their exit done," Jack said, standing up. "Let's move." They retraced their steps, dodging patrols and weaving through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Just as they reached the outer wall, the pulse activated, emitting a deafening pulse that rippled through the facility. Lights flickered, machines sputtered, and the aliens collapsed, clutching their heads in agony. "Go, go," Jack shouted, leading the charge toward the extraction point. Behind them, the relay station erupted in flames, its antennas collapsing in a shower of sparks. The team sprinted across the open field, their lungs burning as they pushed themselves to the limit. When they reached the rendezvous point, a transport vehicle waited, engine idling. As they piled inside, Jack glanced back at the burning facility. For the first time in months, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had struck a devastating blow, but the war was far from over. Unbeknownst to them, Kella's stolen ship streaked across the sky, homing in on their location. She had transmitted the data on Zorak's weapon to the Resistance, hoping it would buy them enough time to stop him. She braced herself for whatever came next. Humanity had proven itself resilient, but the greatest battle still lay ahead. The Resistance compound buzzed with activity as news of Kella's transmission spread. Her stolen data had revealed the existence of Zorak's doomsday weapon, a terrifying device capable of wiping out Earth's atmosphere in minutes. The message was clear. Humanity's survival depended on destroying the weapon before it could be activated. Jack stood in the command tent, staring at the map spread across the table. His hands rested on the edge, his knuckles white from gripping it too. Tightly around him, Sarah, Lily, Rachel, and other key members of the Resistance discussed their options. The mood was tense, but focused. There was no room for hesitation now. "We know where the weapon is," Rachel said, pointing to a location marked on the map. "It's aboard Zorak's flagship, docked in orbit above the planet." "That's suicide," Ben muttered, shaking his head. "Getting onto that ship is impossible." "Not impossible," Jack countered. "Just hard. We've done the impossible before. We'll do it again." Sarah stepped forward, her voice firm. "He's right. If we don't stop this thing, nothing else matters. This is our last stand." Lily nodded, her expression determined. "I can modify the pulse to target the weapon directly. If we get close enough, we might be able to disable it." Rachel sighed, running a hand through her short hair. "Right. Here's the plan. We'll use Kella's ship to reach the flagship. We risked everything to help us. We owe it to her to finish what she started. Once we're aboard, we split into 2 teams. One will focus on finding and disabling the weapon. The other will create distractions and hold off any guards." The group exchanged uneasy glances, but no one argued. They all knew the stakes. Failure wasn't an option. Kella's ship touched down near the compound just before dawn. Sleek design gleamed faintly in the early light, a stark contrast to the battered vehicles the Resistance usually used. Jack approached cautiously, his rifle slung over his shoulder. The hatch hissed open, and Kayla emerged, her pale skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "You came back," Jack said, lowering his weapon slightly. "I couldn't stay away," Kayla replied, her green eyes meeting his. "This fight isn't yours alone anymore. It's mine too." Jack nodded, gratitude swelling in his chest. "We need your help. Can you fly us to the flagship?" Kayla smiled faintly. "I can do better than that. I'll lead the way." Journey to the flagship was nerve-wracking. The ship's advanced cloaking technology kept them hidden from enemy sensors, but the tension inside the cabin was palpable. Lily worked furiously on the pulse, making final adjustments while Sarah reviewed the layout of the flagship provided by Kella's stolen intel. Jack sat quietly, staring out the viewport at the massive alien vessel looming ahead. When they reached the docking bay, Kayla guided the ship inside, masking its presence until the last possible moment. As soon as the hatch opened, the team sprang into action. Jack led the charge, his rifle raised as they moved swiftly through the corridors. Alarms blared almost immediately, alerting the crew to their presence. "This way," Kayla shouted, motioning for them to follow her. She navigated the labyrinthine passages with ease, her familiarity with the ship giving them a crucial advantage. They reached a junction and split into 2 groups. Jack, Lily, and Ben headed toward the chamber housing the doomsday weapon, while Sarah, Rachel, and Kayla created a diversion by sabotaging key systems throughout the ship. Inside the weapon chamber, the air crackled with energy. The device loomed before them, a towering monstrosity of alien engineering, pulsating with an ominous blue light. Wires snaked across the floor, connecting it to power conduits that hummed ominously. "This is it," Lily whispered, setting the pulse down carefully. "I need a few minutes to set this up." Jack and Ben took defensive positions, scanning the entrance for signs of approaching enemies. Moments later, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. "There. Coming," Ben warned, raising his weapon. A squad of alien soldiers burst into the room, firing relentlessly. Jack returned fire, ducking behind cover as energy blasts seared the air around him. Ben fought valiantly, taking down several enemies before being struck by a stray shot. He collapsed to the ground, clutching his side. "Ben," Jack shouted, but there was no time to check on him. More aliens poured into the chamber, overwhelming their defenses. Lily worked frantically, her fingers flying across the controls of the pulse. "Almost done," she cried, sweat dripping down her face. Jack emptied his last magazine, then grabbed a fallen alien's weapon, continuing the fight with renewed determination. Just as the aliens closed in, the pulse emitted a deafening pulse of energy that rippled through the chamber. The weapon sputtered and sparked, its lights flickering erratically before going dark. "It's done," Lily exclaimed, collapsing to her knees in exhaustion. But the victory was short-lived. Zorak himself entered the room, his reptilian features twisted with rage. He bellowed orders to his remaining troops, who surrounded Jack and Lily. "You think you've won?" Zorak growled, stepping closer. "You've only delayed the inevitable?" Jack stood tall, his weapon empty, but his resolve unshaken. "Maybe, but you'll never win against us." Before Zorak could respond, an explosion rocked the ship, sending everyone stumbling. The diversion team had succeeded in disabling critical systems, causing chaos throughout the flagship. In the confusion, Kayla appeared, wielding a stolen alien. "Weapon, go," she shouted, firing at Zorak and his guards. "I'll hold them off." Jack hesitated, torn between gratitude and guilt. "Kayla now," she commanded, her voice firm. Reluctantly, Jack grabbed Lily's arm and pulled her toward the exit. Behind them, Kayla faced Zorak alone, her movements swift and precise. With a final defiant roar, she fired a concentrated blast at the damaged weapon, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. The team barely made it back to the ship before the flagship began to collapse. Kayla's sacrifice had bought them precious seconds, and they launched into space just as the vessel erupted in a blinding explosion. Back on Earth, the survivors gathered outside the compound, watching the sky light up with the fiery remains of the flagship. For the first time in months, there was silence, not the oppressive quiet of fear, but the peaceful stillness of relief. Jack stood beside Lily, his arm draped over her shoulders. "We did it," he said softly. "She saved us." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "And we'll never forget her." Sarah joined them, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. "What happens now?" Looked out at the horizon where the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. "Now we rebuild, together." Word of the victory spread quickly, inspiring hope among the scattered remnants of humanity. Alien forces withdrew from Earth, their unity shattered by the rebellion. Diplomatic delegations arrived weeks later, seeking peace and cooperation rather than conquest. In the end, humanity had proven itself not just as survivors, but as innovators and peacemakers. And somewhere among the stars, whispers of change rippled through the cosmos, proof that even the most unlikely species could rise above adversity.